Why SAO was a great anime, an anecdotal experience. Now, before you click off after hitting the dislike, hear me out and give me about 10 minutes of your time. I just want to talk about anime as I grew up. If you are like me, anime everywhere was fairly looked down upon. Your classmates would snicker behind your back because this art form was shown to be for kids or perverts. And that was the social stigma that was then placed on you as well if you happened to be an avid viewer. This would go as far as to see other people being made fun of, bullied perhaps, because it was lame, childish, and creepy. And if that wasn't enough, when you would go home, your family just didn't get it. And they too thought of this piece of media, this art form, as a hindrance. And for the more cultured around us, that would watch shows like High School DxD or To Love Ru. Sometimes you would sit there after an episode and think to yourself, are they right? Is there something better I could be doing with my life? With my time? Yes, there is. Now, this is more than likely not the answer you wanted. You wanted a self-gratifying answer to quell any doubts you may have while you are picking your new waifu. And while yes, you could have done something else, who cares? Everyone has their vice, their special hobby, the thing they come to when feeling down. Happy, depressed, and anime, manga, light novels were those things for me. But somewhere in all this confusion, somewhere along the lines, a shift started to occur. Games became more socially viable, forms of media once ostracized, now accepted. But how? Where did this metamorphosis, this transformation and fundamental change happen? Well, if you've paid any attention to the title of this video, you can more than likely discern where I'm going with this and what anime I truly believe played a very fundamental role in all of this. SAO. So when did this shift happen? Is there any single point we can look at and unequivocally point to as the flip, the switch that allowed anime to be talked about to anyone at any time and not need to be afraid if the other party would then label you as a pervert, a subhuman? Not at all. In fact, I would challenge anyone to show me where and when this happened, because it wasn't something that just happened. There wasn't some event or flag that was raised that allowed for me to talk about the latest episode of Psychopaths, Axel World, Aesthetica of a Rogue Hero. I couldn't talk about my favorite episode of Spice and Wolf or even show Lucky Star to those closest to me because of this social stigma that was plastered on to anime as a whole. So then, when? What is my assessment on all of this? If there is no single point, how could I focus so heavily on SAO? Well, you see, while I can't give any analytical evidence, I can give my anecdotal take and what it was like for me growing up in my middle school to high school years. And this won't be perfect. It's not meant to be. This is just a general look at an anime that was so made fun of for being a bad anime that it's shameful to like it. As if gatekeeping on anime wasn't already hard enough with the pessimistic, cynical, and crude remarks you were already getting from those outside this bubble that is the anime fandom. Well, it's because stigma's broken. You see, SAO really didn't do anything great. And this is really heavily drilled into anyone who seems to show any enjoyment for the show. You can't tell people that your favorite character is Kirito because you would get someone laughing at you for saying that, both inside and outside of the community. Then how? How is it that you can point to SAO and say that this is the reason that anime has become destigmatized. Again, I can't. But what I can say is that SAO did break a lot of stigmas while also leaning into a very easy to get into premise. Now, if you are watching this, you more than likely know what SAO is about. It's about diving into a game as if it was real life and then getting trapped inside where this world has now become your reality. And you must now fight to survive and hopefully one day see your loved ones again. Now, this is not a really groundbreaking story. We have seen many other isekai anime out there. What's the big deal? Well, you see, this opened up the doors to people who played games. This allowed for those outside the bubble to now show interest at something in it. But they didn't stop there. They made socially awkward characters because I don't know if you know this, but the main protagonists aren't adults. How many of you can say that you don't look back at your teen years and cringe from time to time, remembering events in your life that keep you up at night? It happens. That is what those years are made for, and it captures it so well. But they had to grow up. They had to fight to hopefully get out. And that is the driving force. They didn't need the greatest story, characters, art, or progression. They broke out of what anime had to be considered good so that they could make a more relatable anime. They took out most of what would be considered extremely sexual while still leaving flares of fan service. The characters were shown to go about their new life and grew bonds along the way. This isn't something you would get in very many anime that would cater to teens and adults alike. You had your teen love stories, but the adults who watched while not enthralled could see the relationship between Kirito and Asuna and look back fondly at their younger years as both a much simpler and awkward time. A time where just holding hands felt like an accomplishment. So that's how SAO broke the stigma. It showed the side of anime that could be for everyone. There was action, romance, fan service, and heartbreak. Yes, it did none of those the best, but it didn't have to. All it had to do was set itself up in a way to attract an audience that wasn't just anime enthusiasts. And it did, which in turn started to change perceptions at school. You see, something very weird started happening in school. People who once didn't even put anime on their radar were now discussing it. People who were known to be the anime weebs were asked about the show because they didn't know who else to ask. It was a very puzzling experience when someone you didn't even know, as they were outside of your circle of friends, walked up to you and started talking about the SAO boss fight. However, this was only the beginning. Soon after SAO finished, there was a silence, and people wondered what else there was. I mean, they're just cartoons, right? Something to pass the time. And while the meek of us will yell out to the screens, they're anime, not cartoons. It was refreshing, just having someone to talk to. And of course, there's always been Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, Bleach, Naruto. A lot of these shows, when talking about them, just didn't mesh well for what people wanted. Take Dragon Ball Z. Everyone who generally watched action shows could very fluidly get into it, as it was the action anime to watch, at least here in the West. However, there is no real mystery in the show. There is no real romance. There isn't this connection you could get with SAO because everything in Dragon Ball could just never happen. And I'm not saying that everything in SAO could, but with how far technology has come, honestly, it's only a matter of time. So it shows people that anime didn't have to only be extremes. that there is a nice middle ground if you know where to look. And then, with releases like Attack on Titan, JoJo Bizarre Adventures, Tokyo Ghoul, you started to see people talk more openly. And when there wasn't more to watch, as it was week to week, you could see people start to become true degenerates as they would go back in time, maybe starting with Hunter x Hunter. Then they would hear about the big three and they would spiral on. So again, SAO didn't have to be the best. It didn't have to be good. It just had to appeal and get people to watch, which it did very well, allowing for what I believe was the debut for anime in the mainstream. There is no way you are saying that SAO is the sole cause for anime in the mainstream. You would have to be crazy. No, I'm really not. What I am saying is that it was the catalyst that allowed for the market to be there. Anime was already huge in the East, well, specifically Japan, but it just didn't have the market here in the States. Yeah, you would see from time to time someone asking if you saw this show and that show, but that was only in the fandom, and good luck even trying to find a place to reliably watch it. At best, you had to buy the Japanese version of the show and hope it had subtitles, or you would have to pirate it. And while piracy isn't really good and it's a video for another day, there was just no other way to reliably get anime that you wanted, especially if it was something niche like Penguin Drum. And while yes, Funimation and Crunchyroll were a thing, it was so limited back then, it just really wasn't worth it. So there was just no real way to find anime. That wasn't till my middle school years when in 2014 something really huge happened. Netflix released some anime. Yeah, they had their own anime coming out. But the big hitter was SAO. And then everything just exploded. You saw people in the halls talking about anime shows, wanting to know if X was good or if Y was worth their time. It was actually crazy and really surreal. It went from people who were getting into it because of SAO and Attack on Titan to a lot of people now talking about it in their everyday lives, and it branching out to more and more people. It was nearly as talked about as much as games and sports. It was a wild experience not having to hide that you enjoyed anime anymore, and I could finally wear merch that I had, not feel like everyone was looking at me strangely. Now, when I say I could now wear it, I wasn't the only one. I mean, the art on some of the shirts were just so cool. You would sometimes see multiple people having the same shirt or wallet. It was as if they all went to the same hot topic at the same time. And this had to be a huge catalyst. I mean, you know the saying, money talks. And can you guess what a lot of those people were wearing? Yeah, it was Attack on Titan merch. And then SAO. Because, you see, that was just the wave. And Attack on Titan just appealed to the mainstream more when it came to cosmetics. The art on their clothes at the time kind of steered away from the casual cast on a shirt and had some genuinely nice looking shirts. But how is it that I can contribute it all to SAO then? Well, because that's what started it. For a while, when I would go to a friend's house, do you know what I would see? The DVD set of SAO Season 1. They could be someone who has never worn a shirt, carried a wallet, or bought a figure. But a lot of people here would have one of two boxes on their shelf. And SAO would usually be the one because it was just so easy to get into. But the best thing was the moment you got when at a friend's house, they would look down at their feet before entering their room and say, not to laugh at me. And then when they opened their door, they would have their favorite anime figurines there on their shelf or near their computer. And I would run up to them out of pure amazement since we are very poor and I could never get a figure. And they would just smile and talk about their favorite anime. It was a really crazy time seeing all of this happen. So, yeah, it's kind of crazy. And I know many of you won't believe or want to believe anything I said here, but it's all true from my perspective. And I'm not saying that SAO was a great anime or even objectively a good one, but I am saying that SAO was a good anime because of what it did for the community. Helping anime come to the mainstream was the biggest enjoyment I had in my life because I no longer had to hide this other part of myself to my friends. I didn't have to look around and wonder if anyone heard me when whispering my favorite Vocaloid song, or be scared when playing Danganronpa or Corpse Party on my PSP during lunch or pastime. Because now many other people were into anime, and I can wholeheartedly say thank you to SAO.